Welcome to the Education Corner, a podcast by Education Choices magazine.
Education Corner podcast would like to welcome Mrs. Samantha Price, the new head of Cranleigh School, Surrey. Cranleigh is an independent co-educational boarding and day school. Mrs. Samantha Price joined in August 2024, becoming the school's first female head in almost 160 years. Mrs. Price has enjoyed a highly successful career both in co-ed and single-sex schools, and most recently leading Benenden as the head for a decade. She has a passion for education that strengthens and nurtures young people and provides them with the confidence to navigate the challenging teenage years. Welcome to our Education Corner podcast. Firstly, can you tell us, obviously we've mentioned it a little bit in the introduction, but how did you come to be the head at Cranleigh, and how exciting to be the first female head?
Yes, it's very, very good to be here, particularly after having been appointed over a year ago and now finally having landed at the school. It's just a really, really exciting opportunity. But how did I get here? So I've been in education for a rather long time, probably longer than I'd like to admit, ideally. But when I graduated from university, actually, I went up to London and I worked at the Tate Gallery for a few years, working in marketing and with patrons and so on. But I always had at the back of my mind this itch to be a teacher. I knew that eventually that was going to end up being my calling. And I actually went into education when I was 26 and started working at a boys' school in Reading, and a day school, fantastic school, great experience. But from there, I wanted to go into boarding and went to King's Canterbury, which was a co-ed boarding school, then up to Hereford Cathedral School, where I was deputy head. And at that point, I then went into girls' education in 2010, where I led Godolphin in Salisbury for a few years, and then on to Benenden, where I've just come from, where I was head for 10 years. And in all of the schools I've worked in, I have just loved working with teenagers, boys and girls, and having that opportunity to be able to immerse myself, particularly in boarding environments more recently. And when I reached my last birthday, I took the decision that it was time for me to do one more headship before I finished my career in education. But I wanted that headship to be different. Benenden, where I was before, is undoubtedly the leading girls' boarding school. But I wanted to go back into co-ed. But I wanted to find a school which had a really strong sense of community, that was grounded, and that there was a wonderful opportunity there to be able to shape it, to take it into the next stage of its development. And so I looked quite hard at various schools. And for me, when I met the staff at Cranleigh, the pupils at Cranleigh and the governors, I knew that it was where I wanted to be and where I felt that I could bring my experience and make, I hope, what will be a very positive difference going forwards.
Very exciting times. And I've interviewed a few different members of staff at Cranleigh over the past few years. Could you tell us a little bit about how you plan to embrace and develop Cranleigh's ethos and values?
Cranleigh has an immensely strong heart that beats wherever you walk around the school. And that comes from a strength of community, which is actually quite rare, I think, to find in a school. And it's definitely supported by the fact that all of the teaching staff live on site. And therefore, even for the day students, of which we have 25% of our cohort a day, they have that access to the depth of the community that we've got and the opportunities that come with that in the same way as any of the boarders. Our ethos, therefore, is very much around a combination of community and individual. And we are 700 in the senior school, which is 13 to 18, but every child is known. And I've seen that from the few weeks that I've been here. Children don't slip through the net. We're big enough that we can do everything to a very high standard, whether that's in sport or music or drama, and obviously academically, but we are small enough that our pupils are really well known. I have been really impressed in my first few weeks here when I've been around the boarding houses in the evenings to see the way in which the older students, your upper sixth students, have been helping younger students, they're your fourth formers coming in at 13 with their homework. And that might be in a boys' house or a girls' house. And that sort of collective spirit of support And as I say, that is quite rare, I think, to find that sort of so proactively within a school. I think within the breadth of community and individuality, we're very, very focused on developing confidence and helping every student to find their thing whilst they're at school. I think we all know that no student is the finished article when they come to senior school. And if you're going to be navigating your teenage years, you've all got to know what your place is, where you belong, and where you can contribute. And that is something that Cranleigh does very well indeed. And that is through finding what it is that really makes you tick. And that's both inside the classroom and academic enrichment, as well as through a very, very comprehensive co-curricular programme. Our motto here at the school is ex cultu rebel. And essentially what that means is from culture comes strength. The culture of the school enables that strength for the individual. It enables that strength that brings excellence. It enables that strength which brings community, but also contribution and service and individual voice. Those are all the areas that I'm going to be retaining, but also developing going forwards. And as we're looking at the future, and I'm a very strong advocate of tracking the World Economic Forum and the skills for the workplace in 2030, what are they looking for? They're looking for individuals who are independent, but really collaborative, individuals who have got excellent communication skills and are able to lead, able to work hard, but able to be really flexible as well, and also to be able to problem solve. So if I take all of those qualities, and of course we mustn't forget technology and AI in there, we are going to be reviewing, or in the process of reviewing, our curriculum to ensure that very consciously all of those skills are embedded through the curriculum. Now, we take for granted, I think, that our students are very collaborative, actually, because of the nature of the type of school we are. And obviously being boarding, I think that really supports that. Flexibility, when you're working and you're living in a school like this, you have to be flexible because you've got a very demanding day. Communication, there are all sorts of forms of communication, and leadership is something that I feel passionate about. And everybody can be a leader, even if that's a quiet leader or if it's an extrovert leader, even if the way that they work very gently within a group as well. But it's helping everybody to recognise the leadership skills that they can bring within the community in here at school. And then technology and problem solving. And I think looking at transferable skills all the time. And one of the areas that we're really going to look to introduce or to develop is around cross-curricular diploma. So what we're looking at doing is introducing a diploma for our prep school, year 7 and 8, probably extending that up to year 9 as well, and providing opportunities to collapse the timetable for a lot of independent work and a lot of problem solving, very practical opportunities for the students as well. And I guess then the final piece of that, which is really important, is we're looking to develop a professional skills programme for our sixth formers, really helping them to identify those skills they need for the workplace. But I'm also going to be introducing the opportunity for all of them to start their own business whilst they're in the sixth form, and all of the challenges, but also the exciting opportunities that come with running a business. So in a rather extended nutshell, that's where we're going.
It's something we get asked about continuously by parents. I think everyone accepts now that academically most schools will be preparing them to a very high standard, but the bigger concern is what next? Will they be able to survive when they leave? So very, very interesting that you're doing that. Next year, Cranleigh will be 160 years old. On the school's website, the school is described as having a rich educational heritage for a school that is also agile and forward-looking. Is there anything further to what you've already said that you'd like to add to that?
I think that the heritage of the school is really important to us. And I think in a world which does require agility and flexibility, it's really important for students to understand the importance of heritage and the importance of tradition that comes with that. So that is something that we will certainly be retaining. I think in addition to what I've described as the curriculum changes and where we want to go, we're very outward looking, and the world is small, but we have international schools in Abu Dhabi and in China, and we're looking to extend those. And with that comes great opportunity so that our students have a very international outlook. They have that chance to be able to connect with students in our sister schools overseas as well. And obviously that in itself will provide opportunities for them in the future, probably in terms of work experience and also networking, which, as we all know, sort of beyond school and in your professional life is central to success.
And how is Cranleigh working to balance academics and the exam success with the detailed plans that you've given me of this kind of renewed and enhanced focus on life skills?
Balance is really important. And I think it's recognising that as we write the curriculum or we review the curriculum, that actually everything that the students are doing is in one way or another contributing to the development of the skills that we are working on as a priority. And that is a combination of what you're doing in the classroom, as well as what you're doing outside of the classroom. We all know that if you are on the stage or involved with performing arts, or you're involved with music or with sport, Model United Nations, whatever it is, just by the fact that you're engaged with those, you are developing that breadth of skill that you need. And so therefore, what we need to make sure is that within our timetable and the shape of our day, that we provide that balance for students to be able to thoroughly engage in those areas of wider interests. It's also very important for teenagers to have some downtime as well, and that helps them to manage stress. And we're very conscious of that. So for us, our focus is to start early, but also then make sure that as we get to sort of late afternoon, there is that chance to be able to have relaxation before then you go into prep in the evenings. Managing exam stress. Well, first of all, stress is important because we all actually perform better if we work, and we can work under pressure. But managing that pressure also means giving students the opportunity to have plenty of bite-sized pressure through the week, because the more of that you have, actually you build up a cumulative resilience. And then you start to take those bigger steps forward when it comes to sort of important public exams as well. So that's all sort of very consciously built into the curriculum. But fun is also really, really essential. So those opportunities to bring the community together, which we did a couple of weeks ago for a big sort of house dance competition, food-oriented opportunities to be able to relax with friends and enjoy great food is something that, again, we take very seriously. Being able to get together just socially in house groups, etc., is what makes school memorable and what makes school fun. And that's the balance.
In the summer, Cranleigh won Education Choices Award for enveloping EDI in the curriculum. Could you tell us a bit more about how you're including equality, diversity and inclusion and belonging throughout the school, especially the Cranleigh Diversity Alliance?
Yes, so the Cranleigh Diversity Alliance evolved in 2021, and it evolved at the request of the students and the staff and the leadership of the school. And so we set ourselves, or the school set itself, pretty strong targets, building on the culture of the school. And the main area of focus is to make sure that every single individual within our community feels comfortable to be themselves and knows that they have their voice, and that everyone can challenge different views, whether those are political views or religious views or whatever, but everyone will be listened to in that challenge, so that we challenge and we listen well. And that provides for a very rich community, and a community of tolerance and understanding and empathy. In terms of what we do in the Alliance itself, the Alliance looks at all different aspects of Cranleigh life. So it looks at the experience of our students from all backgrounds, the experience of our students who come from different religious denominations and cultures, obviously, as well. We're very keen that in terms of students sort of identifying who they are in terms of their sexuality is something they feel comfortable with doing. So we celebrate key weeks and months through the year. So, for example, it's Black History Month at the moment. We've got students who have created a whole programme around Black History Month. And just before I came on this podcast, my director of music, he sent through today's sort of song clip from another Black singer, which was absolutely wonderful as well. And he's sort of keeping that going right the way through the month. The students themselves will determine the activities that they want to do. They lead assemblies, they go into boarding houses, they get feedback from each other as to what inclusion looks like and areas that we can particularly focus on. So we do regular pupil surveys, and the Alliance will go through those surveys. They will then identify their priorities going forwards. So I think EDI, it's live, it's responsive, and as I walk around the school, the students are very relaxed, but they're also individuals. And I'd never sit here and say we can't do things better, because we always can do things better. And for us, this is something that will remain an absolute priority.
That's wonderful to hear. You mentioned in your introduction, I believe, AI, and I've done a podcast previously about some of the work taking place at Cranleigh. But how is the school incorporating technology and supporting the students to have positive relationships with technology, both now and in the future?
I mean, technology is hugely exciting, and I would challenge anybody who would suggest that as a school we should be burying it and protecting our students from it by not giving them exposure to it. And as you cite in your question, yes, what we've got to do is we have to make sure that that relationship that they develop is one that's well informed, and whereby we ensure that students have a really good understanding of both the benefits but also the challenges and areas potentially which could bring them into not so much danger but could cause them real problems. So with technology, it's embedded in everything that we do. Obviously, over the course of the last couple of years, AI has risen to the fore. And as a school, we've responded to that. I think that journey for us will continue. We have taken the decision that we want to encourage students to identify how they can benefit from using AI, particularly ChatGPT at the moment. And a lot of our education is around how you can benefit from ChatGPT, also how it can help you to save time, but also to recognise what plagiarism looks like and how quickly you can be discovered to be plagiarising someone else's work as well. A lot of people say, well, this wasn't an issue, or plagiarism wasn't an issue before ChatGPT. Yes, it was. Of course it was. One of our staff who oversees all of our innovation, curriculum innovation, was on a panel at the HMC conference only earlier this week. And he identified the fact that, of course, plagiarism has been around for years. And if a child wants to cheat, they will cheat. So I don't think AI actually will make a huge difference there. But when something new is introduced, there are different ways of being able to navigate your way through that. And students need to realise that actually as teachers, we're on top of that pretty quickly, or sort of when you go into your professional employment as well. I think that one thing our students need to continue to realise is that AI is a really beneficial tool. There is much more that we can be doing as a school with it, and we will be over the course of the next sort of 5 to 10 years. And I'm sure that how we teach will look quite different probably in 10 years' time. But what AI still is not able to do is to be able to completely problem solve. It doesn't have the capacity for creativity. What it does is it illustrates and supports teaching, and I think can make teaching much more immediate and exciting in many ways. But the power of problem solving and the power of creativity is very much the individual skill that we as humans have, and we need to continue to identify and develop. So alongside technology for us is creativity, which is why we're really wanting to embed that further into the curriculum as we go forwards.
I got an email only yesterday that now language is all being taught, or there's AI language schools, but at the end of the day, they're still not going to have the same interaction as sitting with a human, although very effective. In our preparation for the interview, it was mentioned that many young people are making mistakes by trying too hard to belong and impress their peers. These are formative years and their role models online are not robust. How is Cranleigh working to counteract this and support these pupils through such difficult teenage years?
Young people have always wanted to fit in with their peers, and they've always wanted to impress their peers. And I think just depending on sort of the time that you're brought up, that just looks different. I don't think peer conformity is actually greater now than it's been previously. I think the difference now is the fact that obviously through social media, it's spread far more widely, and therefore access to quite toxic role models is much more immediate, and there's far more of it, which I think obviously brings a real challenge for both girls and for boys. How do we manage that? I guess it goes back to technology and the previous question, in the sense that social media also brings great advantages for young people. It's their world and we can't cut them off from it, certainly not completely. It's around education. It's us helping them, and particularly our older students, supporting our younger students to recognise what a positive role model is and what a dangerous role model is for them, and what a toxic role model looks like. And as we all know, sort of repetition of messaging can be deeply influential. So education is one aspect that we focus on. Not having too much access to your devices is also really, really important. And I'm very glad that the government now, both in the UK but also globally, are finally beginning to address this in a way that's going to really help schools in particular. So at Cranleigh, as with many other schools, during the school day, our students don't have their phones. They do have their iPads because they use those as an educational tool. And obviously we monitor how they use those around the day. Our sixth form are allowed to have their phones in school, but we mustn't see them. But all of our students will hand their phones in at bedtime if they're boarders as well. And some people will argue, well, they're going to be going to university. They need to be able to sort of keep their phones overnight to be able to manage their own time. Yes, they do. But actually, the longer you retain a habit of not having your phone by your bed every single night, the less likely you are then when you do go to university to break that habit. So it's all around us trying to develop healthy habits with phone use. As a school, obviously, we have our own filtering through our website, so we can see and have some control over the sorts of websites that our students are accessing, or social media platforms that they're accessing as well. But I think most important of all, despite the fact that we restrict the time, it's around talking about what they're influenced by. Because in the holidays, obviously, we can't control their use of social media, but we do talk very closely with parents, because a lot of this is managing the partnership between parents and school. So parents feel empowered to be able to challenge their children, to be able to manage device use at home, and to understand actually the online world that their children are growing up in.
And following on from that, obviously, in a time when much is being said about pick-me girls and, as you've mentioned, toxic masculinity, how do you feel being a fully co-educational school is a benefit to the pupils?
It's really, really interesting coming from a single-sex school, because I would never say that one type of school is better than another. But being in a co-ed environment, the pupils talk. And as a school, we encourage the pupils to talk across gender about the issues and the challenges that the opposite sex might present to them, but also to help each other to be able to understand the opposite gender much better. So, for example, our boys are very, very keen to celebrate Movember in November. So where the focus is around male teenage mental health issues. And I think historically we think about teenage mental health as being more of an issue for girls. What is becoming sort of increasingly apparent, and has been, that actually boys find it very difficult to talk about mental health issues or to share their insecurities in any sort of public forum at all. And obviously that then sort of leads to, in many ways, far more destructive forms of self-abuse actually with boys at times than girls. With the boys wanting to talk about mental health or male mental health issues and celebrate Movember, that helps the girls to understand boys more. And that is really important. Girls have rightly had a much stronger platform to be able to talk in recent years. And I think when you're sort of thinking about how toxic male masculinity and that the conversation around that has been, I think that boys need to continue to be very aware of the impact that they have on girls, and to be very sensitive and empathetic in how they are with girls. Equally, the more that we can help girls to understand what being a teenage boy is like, the better. So I think being in a co-ed environment gives an awful lot of opportunity for that. and I hope with very good role models, both female and male, in the school to be able to support them with that.
Finally, what are your plans looking forwards? You're obviously still in your first term there. What do you envision going forwards into 2025?
Oh, so I will be in the summer term going public with our strategic plan for the next phase of Cranleigh's development, which is really exciting. And of course, I've touched on that. There's a lot of thinking going around at the moment around our curriculum. We are also looking to expand our international footprint further going forwards. Certainly going to be doing quite a lot around our sixth form experience and focusing on enterprise and business skills and investment skills alongside A levels. And then obviously facility development as well. Cranleigh is a fantastic school and we have wonderful facilities. I think we're quite known for sport, which is excellent, but I think perhaps we're lesser known for the quality of the music and the performing arts, which I have experienced even in my short time here over the last few weeks. So I would suggest to listeners to watch out for what will be a wonderful performing arts facility, which will be built in the coming years on our Cranleigh site as well. And there will be more to come too.
Well, I look forward to hearing all about it. Thank you so much for giving up your time.
Thank you very much indeed.